Hello and welcome. I am Deji Bademasi. Nigerians were jolted earlier in the week when the country's anti-graft agency, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, announced the arrest of the Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, for his alleged involvement in fraud and money laundering worth 80 billion naira. That's around $193 million. Now, that's a lot of money anywhere in the world. According to the commission, Idris was arrested after failing to honor invitations to respond to the allegations. The EFCC alleged that Idris raked off the funds through bogus consultancies and other illegal activities using proxies, family members, and close associates, and invested the proceeds in real estates in the capital, Abuja, and his home state of Kano. In fact, there are even some reports now of some properties abroad traced to him, but that has not been officially confirmed by the EFCC. Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, has since suspended the embattled Accountant General of the Federation. She says the suspension became necessary to allow for proper and unhindered investigation into the serious allegations in line with public service rules. Well, joining me now to discuss this further is Awal Rafsanjani, who is the Executive Director of Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, an anti-corruption, transparency and accountability non-governmental organization. He joins us via Zoom now from Abuja. Thank you very much, Mr. Rafsanjani, for joining us on the program. As we speak, of course, I believe the Accountant General would obviously have his day in court, and even though as we speak, there's been no verdict from the court yet. He's not been arraigned before any court of law. But what do you make of this?
Well, what has happened is just a clear testimony of the concern we have been expressing and drawing the attention of government that grand corruption are taking place within the government offices. But time over time, some of the government spokesperson or those who benefit from corruption in Nigeria, they always dismiss and they think that what civil society are talking about, raising this concern, are things that are not happening. But we are happy that the EFCC, ICPC have continued to show that corruption are actually, corrupt practices and corrupt officials are actually doing a lot of damage to the country. And therefore, what we need is not propaganda, is not pretending, is not dismissal of the fact that these corruptions are taking place. We need more serious commitment from the government to ensure that corruption and corrupt practices are made it impossible or difficult for people to continue to perpetuate that, and also block the leakages. Right now, the political corruption in the country is getting too high. One of the problems you have with some of the public officials is that even when their tenure is finished, they will go and lobby, including allegation of paying bribe to extend their tenure. In the case of the current Accountant General that is facing anti-corruption charges, he's supposed to retire, but somehow he continued in office, and some people were alleging that he paid his way there. Whether rightly or wrongly, we must respect the rule of law. If your tenure is over, you do not need to insist that you must remain there. And because jobs and appointments are equally alleged to be, for sale in the country, what you are doing now, you are creating, a situation whereby people will invest, pay the money, get their appointment, and when they get there, they keep on, siphoning public taxpayers' money. In all honesty,
let me just interject you there. Let me interject you there. I mean, you did talk about something very important, plugging leakages and all of that. If there's one institution, one of the institutions expected to help block leakages in government finances now, that would of course be the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. Of course, you also have the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. But you know, you look at the position of the Accountant General of the Federation, one of the offices that should help to check leakages, you know, block leakages and all of that, now finding itself, the man who heads that office now finding himself at the center of a huge corruption allegation. What does that tell us?
No, it tells us that the government's anti-corruption, remains a propaganda. It doesn't trickle down to real, government, officials. For example, this person in question, he's supposed to have declared his assets, and we would be able to know where and how, for example, he got the money to buy those properties. The same thing with so many ministers, the same thing with so many public officials who cannot justify where they have gotten the money they are using to
Is
even
it
do
not
politicking
also
in
to
this
the
country.
credit? Is it not also to the credit of the government? And I'm asking you this because you said the government's anti-corruption agenda is more or less a propaganda. But it is not also to the credit of the government that this individual has now been arrested, and not just him. We've also heard of the arrest of the former MD of the NDDC as well. Is this not a credit to the government and a demonstration of the fact that well, somehow its anti-corruption agenda would appear to be working?
No, you have agencies, you have ICPC, EFCC, Code of Conduct that they are doing their best to ensure that they carry
Of
out
course, but
their own
they're all
mandate.
agencies
But
of
why the
government.
problem is, yeah, but why the problem is, just wait, you will see. By the time this matter goes to court, by the time when the court even pass judgment, you will hear, someone is being given pardon. So while the anti-corruption agencies are doing their best, but they are also being demoralized by the political actors who are supposed to be actually encouraging the fight against corruption and even supporting the anti-corruption agencies. What they are doing now, they are just exposing the anti-corruption official for danger and risk, because they will arrest somebody and they took the person to court, and the government, politician, they will now release that person. Invariably, they've created enemy.
No, but
for
then
the
we've had
anti-corruption
cases where
officials.
where some of these, I mean, where these anti-corruption agencies too failed to do, and this has been the case in certain cases now, where they don't do proper investigation, no diligent prosecution, and all of that. So so that would mean if they are not getting their results, of course, because they no doubt achieve certain results. But when you have cases like that, where, for instance, those who were charged, brought before the court on corruption, eventually are set free, would you blame the government for that? Would you blame the anti-corruption agency for that? Or should we say that somehow maybe the judiciary too is partly to blame for that?
The reality is that in many instances where the anti-corruption is even investigating someone, the powerful, politician, they will come and take over the case. For example, there are so many corruption allegations against some individuals in the National Assembly and other places. The Attorney General of the Federation has taken those cases and watered them down. So while EFCC and ICPC are doing their best, the office of the Attorney General is also doing its own to undermine those anti-corruption, corruption cases. Secondly, you also see how some, judicial officials are also compromising and making sure that they undermine the anti-corruption, effort. So judicial corruption is real, is happening. And we are also seeing how powerful, individuals are sabotaging the effort of the anti-corruption agencies. Like, for example, there are so many individuals that are supposed to be prosecuted for the corruption charges or for allegation for corruption. But because of the powerful individual political, maneuver, these people are not facing anything. And then also the last aspect of this sabotage is that some of the investigation, like what they mentioned, are not actually properly carried out without due diligence, without all the necessary, evidences and proof, before they are also being taken to court. And therefore, the corrupt person or facing the allegation, he will now get a smart lawyer or lawyers to go and water down whatever some of the anti-corruption agencies investigation or prosecution, that they are making. So it is important that if we are going to fight corruption, we do it with honesty and sincerity, not just lip service. We acknowledge the effort and the
Let's quickly talk
commitment
about
by the
this case
anti-corruption
now, the case
agencies,
of
but some of
the
the
suspended
government
accountant
officials
general
are
of the
using their
Federation.
position to undermine the anti-corruption.
Yeah, let's quickly talk about the case of the suspended accountant general of the Federation. So what do you expect to see in terms of the investigation? Because of course the EFCC has not concluded investigation and possible prosecution as well. What do you expect to see going forward from here?
What I expect to see, first and foremost, I believe that EFCC must have gotten some concrete evidence for them to make this arrest and to also publicly announce to the nation that this person has diverted, 80 billion naira, and the other person diverting 47 billion naira, and so many, of them. I believe that they must have gathered some tangible evidences, core evidences to make their case. Otherwise, if they did not have any evidence to do that, it would not be really good. But I want to believe that I'm solely convinced that they had, evidences to prove about the issue they are talking about, the allegation they are making. That's number one. Number two, it is also an opportunity for the Code of Conduct to also collaborate with EFCC, for ICPC also to collaborate with the Code of Conduct and EFCC to carry out investigation on the assets declaration of those individuals, and to also look at how public taxpayers' money are being stolen. Thirdly, I think it is important. It is an opportunity to look at some of the lapses we have in our public finance management to see how can an individual divert this huge amount of money without being checked, without being detected. So we have a lot of work to do in order to ensure that we bring some level of sanity in our financial system in the country. Or else it is unthinkable that an individual will just perpetuate this fraud of diverting 80 billion, not million, billion naira, when Nigerians are suffering from hunger, starvation, and lack of decency of life, and no job, nothing, no social services, healthcare system collapse. Education has also quality education has virtually collapsed in the country, and yet one individual is having this bogus amount of money. So we must look at our system, which allows individual or group of individual to be siphoning this huge amount of public taxpayers' money. This is a sheer wickedness. This is unacceptable, especially for the government that says they want to fight corruption. You cannot reduce the fight against corruption just to mere sloganeering. You cannot reduce the fight against corruption just to mere show up and getting the public confidence, and only for you to have allowed public officials to be stealing this. Well, if the government had been listening to civil society fighting corruption in this country, we would have made a lot of progress by blocking those leakages, by making it difficult and if not impossible for public officials to be stealing. But look at ICPC just arrested two persons with in possession of over 300 houses in Abuja. They are just civil servants. So this continues, and at the end of the day, they usually find their way out because of the corrupt judicial system that we have, and because of the National Assembly has also compromised its own oversight function. Because I believe that if the National Assembly is doing what it's supposed to do, if the executive is doing what it's supposed to do, if the judiciary is supposed to be doing what it's doing, honestly speaking, it would have been difficult for individuals to be siphoning this large amount of money.
Absolutely.
But look at it now. Even now, the president had allowed people to be running campaign while they are in office. He has given them directive to move out, and yet many of them are hanging on when there is public, even send up by the president.
All right. I think we'll just have to leave it there, because that's one issue we intend to take on in our next session. I mean, we're definitely going to discuss that, but we just have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Awara Samjani, the Executive Director, Civil Society Advocacy Center, that's CISLAC now, Legislative Advocacy Center, I should say, an anti-corruption, transparency, and accountability civil society organization. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. President Muhammadu Buhari had last week held a valedictory service for 10 outgoing ministers of the Federal Executive Council, now seeking elective positions in the forthcoming general elections. In the session at the State House, President Buhari thanked them for their services and wished them well in their aspirations. But after possibly seeing that their chances of winning their party's nominations is slim, 4 of them beat a retreat and said they were no longer resigning and that they were going to continue in their job as ministers. Now, less than a week later, these ministers attended the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, prompting questions over their situation, since the president had already sent them off, so to speak, now, when he had that valedictory session with them, or for them. As expected, journalists wanted clarification on the issue after the FEC meeting. The Minister of Information and Culture, Tourism, Lai Mohammed, responded by saying he would need to consult with the president on their status and that only the president can decide their fate. In any case, as I said earlier, the ministers attended the FEC meeting. Now, the question in the minds of everybody is, have they been reabsorbed into the council? What exactly is the position of the law about this? Joining me to discuss this further is Ivan Sufeli, who's a legal practitioner. He joins us via Skype from another part of Lagos. Evans, there's a confusion over this issue now. We know that, look, the president gave these ministers a deadline of the 16th of May. Some of them actually did not resign. Because I know, for instance, the Minister of Labor and Employment made it categorically clear before the 16th that he was not going to resign and that he was not taking part in the nomination process in the party. I also know that, some other ministers too did not resign. But then the president went ahead to hold a valedictory session for them. And now they attended the FEC meeting that was held just on Wednesday. So what exactly what exactly would you say is the legal position of things?
Well, if you look at the scenario that played out, they had made their intentions known to the public that they are contesting for political offices. And following that, the president had asked them to resign. They had that valedictory session, I think, on the 13th.
Yeah.
And he told them that by 16th, all those who intend to run for offices should resign their positions in order for them to go and he wished them well. They all attended the valedictory section, but only for us to see that some of them, about 4 of them, now did a U-turn, pulled out from their previous position and told the public that they are no longer going to resign or they are no longer interested in the earlier position. Now, if I were a legal advisor to any of the 4, okay, what I would have done or tell them is that they will need to possibly write the president officially to that effect, that though I made this expression and I made this expression that I was going to contest for this position, in line with which there was a valedictory section organized for me and my colleagues. But after considering this and that, and after wide consultation and all that, I have decided not to go. That would have been a very respectable way to communicate that issue to the president directly from the ministry that they oversee. That would have been. Well, there is no law to the effect that they ought to have done that. But courtesy demand that if you are changing an earlier established position, you must, as a matter of fact, inform.
But the question is this: what exactly? What do we say about ministers who did not actually tender their resignation letters to the president? Because look, we know somehow that some of the ministers who attended that valedictory session did not actually tender their resignation letter in writing. They did not. And you know the president gave them till the 16th. So, but they did not tender. And some of them actually announced that they were not going to go ahead with their ambition before the 16th.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Those ones who actually didn't move further never tendered any resignation letter. They did not tender any resignation. What they did was they told the public, about that. They expressed their intention, and that was a way of letting the public and the general society know their intention. But they never tendered an official resignation letter.
So should the president have acted on the basis of that, just because they made their intention known?
No, it's not. It's the president. The president hadn't asked them to resign. He only said those who intend to, should resign before the 16th. Now they changed their position before that 16th.
Do you think the president was too hasty? Was hasty in holding that valedictory session for them? Because at some point you tend to get the impression that it's like the president just, he's like, he probably wants them to leave. I don't really understand it.
I felt that way too. The valedictory section came too quick. And if you notice, someone like the Minister for Labour was not happy. The expression in his face throughout the valedictory section was not a cheerful one. And some other ministers were, those who were actually ready to leave, were cheerful and all that. But I think the valedictory section was hasty. But you cannot fault the president on that action on the basis of law. You can only fault the president on that action on the basis of the administrative protocols of that office. Someone must have advised the president to, organize that valedictory section for them, possibly because
from what we have read and what we've heard is that some of the ministers who attended that valedictory session were actually shocked, when they got the letter that they were to attend that valedictory session, because they had actually not made up their mind completely that they were going to resign.
Yes, they had not made up their mind completely they were going to resign. And the position of the Electoral Act that was already creating a lot of tension may have influenced the president's decisions too. Even though some of the ministers have expressed the fact that they will rely on the section of the Constitution that say it is 30 days to election that they ought to resign. But I think that the dispute created by the new Electoral Act may have influenced the president's decision to that effect. Now there is a seeming confusion because these same persons who made a U-turn are back to the Federal Executive Council meeting to hold meetings with the president after a validity section, a session organized for them. But my understanding of a validity section is like a send forth.
Exactly.
So having been sent forth, then you are back again to the fold. It smacks of confusion, and then it is not a very good sight for the executive.
And I'm just wondering, you're holding a send-off for someone who has actually not told you officially now that he is leaving.
Yes, it's hasty. They have not even officially resigned. Their tenure has not come to an end. Because apart from reshufflement or sack, their tenure is supposed to lapse with the tenure of the current president. But it has not lapsed. And then 2, they were not sacked. 3, they have not resigned. The only thing they did that they made declarations, they made expressions of their intention, and then some of them purchased forms and all that. So it's quite a hasty one. Like Lai Mohammed said, the president is the only one who can determine their fate, really.
And I guess that's the
And
reason why the Minister of Information was sort of confused and could not give a clear-cut answer. That's the reason probably he said only the president can decide their fate.
he couldn't have given an answer because he is just like any of those ministers affected, except that he didn't make any declaration or expression. He's just like one of them. So he cannot even decide what the president will want to do. But the only thing the president has powers to do is to relieve them of their job. Okay, the president cannot do any other to relieve them or to allow them to continue. But I don't think there's any official letter emanating from them, even though they had not resigned, but they had made their expressions known to the president. They ought to have written a letter to the president to say that I have changed my mind on this decision, though a decision have been organized for us.
Because
I have changed my
and
mind.
another thing, I know, for instance, that the Minister of Labor and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, actually came out to say before the 16th that he had met with the president and that he had told the president that he was not going to go ahead, that he was not going to go ahead with his political, with his political ambition, so to speak.
Yeah, that for me, if he had done that, that would be a good one. But it would have been better he put it in writing, so that you can have an official statement to effect.
Let's just wait and see what the president does, because these ministers attended the FEC meeting, so they had access to the presidential villa and had access to that meeting. So on the basis of that, you could as well say, well, maybe they're still recognized as ministers by the president.
They are still recognized, except that they joined through a Zoom platform.
No, but two of them, I know, two of them were actually present at in person. The Minister of Justice was there. The Minister of Women Affairs too was there at the meeting, in person.
It was there. Then others joined via Zoom link. So it means possibly they accepted back to the fold. But the president will need to make a statement to address the nation on that. Yes, the president owes it to the larger society to make a broadcast on the status of those ministers and what he think or what the decision of the presidency, the presidency has taken to that effect. That will clear the air, or they organize a press conference or whatever it is to let the public understand. If this is not done, I think it's not good for the executive.
All right, just before I let you go now, let's quickly talk about the arrest of the Accountant General of the Federation for allegedly stealing, let's put it that way now, 80 billion naira. And just a couple of hours ago, we heard of the arrest, of course, of the former MD of NDDC, accused of embezzling 47 billion. I mean, you add this figure, it's really huge. What do you make of it? What do you make of both incidents?
Well, this is one case too many. We've had this over and over again. For the NDDC, it has been a recurrent decimal. Every administration we've had on the NDDC, it has been from one embezzlement to the other. Though the allegations, I think they are going to have their day in court.
Yes.
My only fear is that when EFCC bring their charges sometimes, or when they release their charges sometimes to the press, it is always sometimes very difficult for them to prove wholesomely what the issues are. We pray that if it is true actually that the two persons affected embezzled the sum so stated, the sum under reference, then EFCC will need to do a lot. They will have to prosecute this case proper and ensure that they leave no stone unturned to, give us a very robust, watertight prosecution that will guarantee conviction, because this is criminal allegations and a criminal trial is going to spring up from this. And in criminal trial, there are a lot of things that you must do, because once you make any mistake or any doubt is created, it's done in the favor of the accused person. So let the EFCC prove this forensically and use all their arsenal to, give or prove the evidence beyond reasonable doubt to ensure that they're able to prove this case proper before the court. That is what will inculpate the affected persons. Anything other than that, you see, media trial, press conferences to say how many billion was stolen and all that does not really change anything.
And let me quickly ask you, what do you think from a legal standpoint now? What do you think would be the biggest challenge of the EFCC in dealing with these cases?
Well, one of the challenges they are going to confront is the ability to prove the sum so expressed. Because I know they must have done their investigation before they came up with this figure. They couldn't have just, put it out that way. They must have done their investigation. But this investigation they have done with evidence. How credible are this evidence? Are this evidence credible? And are this evidence admissible? Those are the questions.
All right, unfortunately, I think we lost Ivan Sufeli there. Well, that's how much we can take. Fortunately, we can reconnect to him. That's how much we can take on the program this week. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.